Hey everybody, it's JJ here, and sorry about a little bit of delay that we had for our PCDIY stream. We had it actually set originally for 3:30, but we had a couple of things that we needed to go ahead and catch up on and get into play. But we're excited to be able to go ahead and get the stream started. Excited to have everybody join us. Hopefully everybody's having a good end to their week. Being positive and productive. We've got a pretty nice number of things to be able to go ahead and touch on this week. A little bit of everything from some what I'd say, we got new monitors, we got some new motherboards, we've got follow-up to the ProArt graphics card announcement that we had, the HELIOS 2 introduction, some new networking products, and a couple of actually promotions if we can end up fitting it in. Was hoping to also have the PCDIY Builder Spotlight stream ready for this week, but we'll probably actually have that ready for next week, so just make sure to keep it tuned. And we'll also make sure to share the corresponding actually community links so that if you guys want to be able to submit your builds to be able to have them featured here on the stream, we're going to go ahead and reintroduce that back in play. So if you guys are interested and you've got recent builds that you want to be able to go ahead and have showcase, feel free to go ahead and submit your build for a feature here on the PCDIY Builders live stream. So first and foremost, let me go ahead and see who we have joining us on the stream. We've got Shell, happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us on the stream. We've got, let's see, Alex. Hey, can you start with new monitors? Okay, I generally usually start with the monitors. Monitors tend to be pretty popular. We're specifically going to be highlighting a new OLED monitor on the ROG STRIX OLED side, and then we're also going to be talking about a TUF Gaming display. So sure, since you asked, I'll go ahead and start with the monitors first. We've got Sue Min joining us as well. Actually, sorry, is that Sue Min joining us? Thanks for joining us here. Who else we've got? Oh, we've got Wes over from LAN-OC's great review website. If you guys are not checking them out, make sure to go ahead and do that. We've got ZZ Utopia also joining us. Fantastic, man. Thanks for joining us here on the stream as well. And Catherine and Dan Evils also joining us, as well as Namor 5000. I like the Namor 5000. That's a good one. All right. So with that, let's get ready to go ahead and kick things off. Before we do go ahead and get into the updates, normally for those of you who have watched the streams in the past, we usually do talk about UEFI BIOS updates. I didn't finish downloading the entire actually product matrix, so I would recommend if you guys, you can check out our PCDIY community group. I'm going to go ahead and drop a little QR code in the top corner. You should hopefully be able to see it there. If you're not part of our PCDIY Heartbeat community group, you can join us there, and our community manager actually posts the corresponding UEFI releases that we have for the week. It's pretty busy this week. We actually had quite a number of releases, not only for AM5 users, where there's a new actually microcode introduction there, but there's also updates for the latest generation Intel-based platforms. So as they take, for instance, Z890-based platforms. Now, keep in mind for both of these platforms that I would say both what I would call feature, function, and performance mature. So especially if you've already updated the UEFI recently, there's not an immediate reason for you to go ahead and do so. The main kind of cool thing that I would say that happened recently, if you probably have AM5, is that for a number of AM5 boards, they did get an update to be able to support the new DIMFit Pro feature, which is actually a very cool feature if you're interested in overclocking memory. If you want to find out a bit more about that, probably watch an upcoming stream that will have a targeted kind of demonstration on how you can utilize DIMFit, because we now have it on both Intel and AMD-based platforms. But otherwise, outside of that, it's not a critical update. Microcode updates can sometimes influence performance. Generally, they're also there to supplement things like interoperability and compatibility, as well as also security mitigation. So I do recommend it, but keep in mind that if you do also update your UEFI, prior settings aren't interoperable between builds, so you would need to go back and go ahead and define that. I also have a much more lengthy post where we have guidance on some of the things you want to keep in mind if you do update your UEFI, especially if you're running in a stable or an overclock configuration, because there can be changes within auto rules and other parameters that do get changed up. So again, if you want to find out the entire release note configuration, the release matrix for both the Intel and the AMD-based platform boards, make sure to go ahead and check out, again, the PCDIY community group. Check out the QR code, and you guys can get squared on that side of the fence. Hey, Snef, joining us. Fantastic, man. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. All right, so JJ was busy playing Clash of Clans. Definitely was not busy playing Clash of Clans. I mean, I'm an RTS guy. If I had to probably play something on the mobile side of the fence, like on a phone, I'm a big fan of tower defense. So I don't know how you guys, if you guys like tower defense, but like Kingdom Rush and a lot of the adjacent Kingdom Rush titles from that same studio. I think Ironhide Studios, definitely one of my favorites. Plague, I also like on the mobile side, and there's a couple of other ones that can be pretty kind of fun and interesting, but generally if I'm going to be gaming, I'm going to be gaming on the PC side, right? So let's go ahead and continue forward here. So I do actually have an announcement for a giveaway opportunity, I believe. So let me go ahead and bring this up here, and this is going to be for our Trick Out Your Build. So let me go ahead and get this up here for you guys if you guys are interested in checking this out. All right, here we go. Yes. All right, so we didn't have a stream last week because I had a little bit of time off attending to some personal items. Also, it was actually my birthday as well, so I'm busy on a couple of different notes. So this actually started right at the end of last month, but it will continue forward actually until I believe late November. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the information here if you guys want to get in on this great opportunity that we've got right here. So this is going to be our Trick Out Your Build, where you have the join to be able to win quite a number of amazing prizes. You can see some of the really awesome prizes that we have here. Everything from, of course, some of the latest generation motherboards, graphics cards, the Ryu 4 cooler, ROG Azoth, the Pelta headset, Kirus Origin, a lot of really cool stuff within here. You can see that the actual up to $12,000 in terms of the actual pricing configuration. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in the chat for you guys. If you guys want to go ahead and check it out, but let me go ahead and bring up the actual page for you guys, and you can check things out right here. So I'm also a big fan here is that there are going to be actually a couple of prize bundles where we have actually coordination with partners like AMD, Intel, Corsair, G-Skill, Kingston, Lian Li, Micron, and Team Group, who are also bundling in some cool pricing opportunities that we're going to have there to be able to pair a couple of those items as well. And again, the kind of the highest end kind of configuration will be able to include things like I said, an X870 Hero BTF-based motherboard, which hasn't launched, or our new flagship AIO cooler, the Ryu 4, which is of course the SoC model with that really cool, of course, 6.667-inch course AMOLED based display. A lot of really cool things on that side of the fence. So let me go ahead and drop in this link for you guys, and if you want to check it out, you can. So, and this will be a worldwide giveaway, so if you guys are interested on that side, you guys can go ahead and check that out. So gone ahead and drop that in the chat for you guys. Make sure to join in, and I'm sure probably also our community site will probably also share that information as well. So if you want to go ahead and check it out on the community side, you can go ahead and do that as well. All right, so let me go ahead and give me 1 second here and do this here really quick. Okay, perfect. All right, so see anything else immediate that I wanted to touch on that side outside of the giveaway? I don't believe so. So I think we're going to probably get straight into actually just a little bit of a soft teaser. So sometimes for you guys that watch a stream, I like to give you guys a little bit of a heads up on a couple of things that we're evaluating, and it might actually be good to get a little bit of feedback from your side. So one of the things that we are actually right now considering is, some of you might be familiar that we did release a ProArt LC series of coolers, so our AIO coolers. We have a 360 millimeter based offering, and we also have a 420 millimeter based offering. Now we launched the actual PA401, which was our compact ProArt based chassis. That chassis is only designed for up to a 240 millimeter. And while we've got some great options from our other series of AIO cooling solutions, or of course you could use a tower heatsink, we did have users asking like, hey, we'd love to be able to have maybe a more compact offering. And then some users were wanting to see an option just for maybe more compact chassis, whether you're talking about an SSF type build or maybe a medium form factor build, although we do have smaller chassis that could actually accommodate up to a 360 degree radiator. That being noted, we are actually considering bringing in a ProArt cooler in the 240 millimeter form factor. So let me actually go ahead and show you the current 360 base model if you guys want to check this out. It's got a really refined design aesthetic, very much complementary to, of course, the ProArt based ecosystem. So if you guys have any thoughts in terms of whether or not you would want to see this in the market, feel free to go ahead and let us know. But right here, I'll just go ahead and show you the ProArt base cooler right here. You know, one of the hallmarks of the ProArt units, just like a lot of the ProArt products, is we don't focus on RGB lighting. They really have a stylized kind of minimal design aesthetic where we have generally it's all blacked out. There's a little bit of gold accents there because that's the hallmark within kind of the ProArt based ecosystem. And even the fans are interesting because for the ProArt series, we've actually had special collaborations and partnerships. So take, for instance, like the 360, we actually paired up with AlphaCool and used the Apex based fans, which are these metal based fans, very performant, very impressive. They have really, really nice tone throughout the entirety of the RPM range because they have such high level of rigidity. And then for the 420 millimeter version, where we worked with Noctua and we used the IPPC 140 millimeter base fans. So both the units actually come with very premium fans already pre-included. The 240 would also be using the Apex base fans as well. They are a custom derivative of it that's specific for this ProArt base cooler. The RPM range is a little bit different than the standard base model. But if that's something you're interested in, let me know, guys, and we'll see about whether or not we would bring this model in. So that is one item that I wanted to go ahead and touch on there as far as a possibility that we might have coming down. And then also, for those of you not aware, we do actually have ROG Thermal Compound. We right now actually have two versions of it. We have the ROG Thermal Compound Kit, which actually comes included with stencils. So if you guys have actually never seen this, some people are still not aware that we actually have this. You get kind of the entirety set of what you would need. So you have Intel stencils, you have AMD stencils, you have actually cleaning wipes, you have an applicator, and then you actually have the syringe with the thermal compound in it. So outstanding level of performance here. We're also working on a follow-up version here. Actually won't be a follow-up to replace this one. It'll just be supplementing an additional model within the line. So this would be this model is the ROG 07, which again, we have the kit, which includes the stencils, the wipes, and the applicator. And then there's the standalone just syringe by itself. So both of those are the ROG 07, whether it's the kit or the standard version, but we're also going to be looking to potentially introduce the ROG 05, whether or not we would bring it in for the North American region. Now, I'm probably going to see if I can get a little bit more information for you guys to share, because, you know, there's always a lot of questions that people tend to have about kind of thermal compound, not only related to the performance, but things like if there are differences in the viscosity between the different compounds. Sometimes people prefer more viscous, some people prefer less viscous. There can be also other aspects in terms of the durability or the lifespan rated for the actual compound in itself. So stay tuned for more details on that side, but we do have another thermal compound that we're evaluating bringing to the market. And again, kind of testing the waters to see if that's something you guys might be interested in for North America. So if you guys are, feel free to let us know. And if there's anybody that has tried out the ROG 07 thermal compound, let me know. We don't actually bundle this with currently any products, so it would have been something you actually would have to purchase independently. And maybe feedback from anybody. Has anybody actually ever used a stencil to apply your thermal compound? The main benefit, if you're not aware on using a stencil, is that essentially you don't have to really worry about the application method, right? So instead of going, do I do a cross? Do I do a dot? Do I do an X? Do I manually spread it? Pretty much all you do is you will put the thermal compound, use the spreader, you spread across the stencil, and that will exactly apply the amount that you need resonant to the IHS, right? So the actually integrated heat spreader, whether it's going to be for an Intel-based platform or whether it's going to be for an AMD-based platform. So it kind of simplifies the process. And the byproduct is you kind of get this cool little design that you see right there. But when actually compressed, the IHS along with the cold plate, it will pretty much equally exactly spread out exactly what is required for that IHS-based design. So that is the actual stencil format. So that's another little teaser for you guys right there. Let's see if we have any commentary or feedback on that side before we get ready to get into the monitors, because I know that we have the request to do displays first. So let me see right here. Danny goes, the only part missing on my high-end ROG build as of now. Danny goes, since you're touching on various products, any chance on the Thor PSU coming to North America? Yeah, so actually, I would recommend watching the last PCDIY stream. What is this? This is stream 122. 121, actually, I gave the update on the Thor models. So right now, the focus right now is on all of the models outside of the 1600. So the 1000 watt and the 1200 watt, because that's where the majority of the market is in terms of actually where the demand is. We will still be bringing in the 1600 watt, but as I say right now, I don't even think that we're probably going to have it available before the end of 2025. I think probably realistically, it's probably not going to be until the very early portion of Q1 for next year for 2026. Okay. But we will be carrying the 1600 watt. If you are really excited about the 1600 watt, we will be carrying it. Also, for those of you that saw the actual announcement for our Pro Workstation class of power supplies, which actually go all the way up to 3300 watts, so 3,300 watts, we actually have 3 different models. We will actually bringing in the Pro WS power supplies to the North American market. So if you're looking again for a very high grade power supply, outstanding build topology and performance at very high wattage levels, then we will actually be having the Pro WS series of power supplies coming to the market. All right. So Top 3 Entertainment goes, never realized the thermal paste was sold separately. Yeah, so you can actually only get that ROG thermal compound as a separate standalone item. For any of our coolers that come with thermal compound, they actually come with the thermal compound pre-applied on the cold plate. And I wonder if anybody's got any commentary. What do you prefer? Do you prefer to have it pre-applied to the cold plate, or would you rather have a syringe included inside the box? I think for a lot of builders, I think it is more convenient to just have the thermal compound already pre-applied because it's exactly the right amount. You just put it there and you're good to go. The syringe gives you a nice little benefit, though, that sometimes if you do want to do a reapplication later, you get a little bit of extra compound that you have available to you in the syringe, because a vendor is not going to give you like an entire full syringe in there. So you generally have enough for maybe a couple of applications. So it's nice, but a lot of times some people don't because they're going to end up swapping it out. So what's your guys' thoughts? Do you guys prefer the pre-applied method with the thermal compound, or would you rather have the thermal compound be included via syringe and then you manually apply it? Again, I think for a lot of users, it's simpler to just go with it pre-applied on the cold plate. like we do right now currently, but be interesting to see what your guys' thoughts are right there. Hey, Liquid House is joining us. Fantastic, man. Thank you for joining us. And he says, would help for ProArt themed SFF builds. I would agree. Yeah, that 240 millimeter cooler definitely is going to be more compact, and it would be definitely beneficial for those more kind of streamlined, kind of more small form factor based builds, right? All right. So what is the shelf life of the compound? And both, it depends, right? Different compound, you have to also account for the actual temperature that you actually have. So it can be variable in that regard. But like I said, hopefully maybe in the next stream, if I can get some more information on the ROG 05, I'll give you guys information on both the ROG 05 and the ROG 07 base thermal compounds, so that if you want a little bit more information than that, you can do that. Okay. So I bought the ROG Falchion ACE HFX. I really like the actual HFX switches, but I would agree. I think that if you talk about overall total feel and sometimes the acoustic element, while we worked really hard to, I'd say that the magnetic switches that we're using, those HFX switches, I would say are the best HFX switches on the market. I've tried quite a number of them. I would still say the overall refinement and the experience that you can have from a standard switch, so standard mechanical switch, is actually, I would say, superior. So if your preference is more for, I'd say, feel and a little bit on the acoustic side, I would actually take a look at any number of our keyboards that currently come with the ROG Snow switches. Snow switches are going to be linear switches, so that means that there's no tactile bump. Now, if you're somebody that really wants a tactile bump, we do have keyboards that do have, of course, tactile switches. They're going to generally be kind of like your brown derivative switches, and then you have your clicky switches, which our version of clicky switches are going to be our ROG. We have two. We have the ROG Snow, which are linear, and then we have the ROG Storm. Storm are going to be the clicky-based switches, but they're quite nice. I find clicky switches for me too loud. I prefer a softer and quieter switch, so I'm a really big fan of linear switches. If you want an even quieter switch, there's definitely a couple of recommendations I can give you. Quite a number of our keyboards do have a hot swap PCB design, so that means, of course, you can roll your switches on the aftermarket. But I think one of the really big value props that we do have with the Snow switches is that they're bin for gram force deviation consistency. This isn't actually standard amongst a lot of the switches in the market. So an example right here, actually, I was doing some switch, I was doing some switch stuff later, and so an example is like right here. If you get like a box of switches, you might not realize that like in the whole box, if you order, let's say like 60 switches, there's a normal what's called gram force deviation. So if the switch is, let's say, rated for like a certain number of grams, in the production facility, there can be like a variance of like plus or minus 10. So that means that if it's rated for like 55, it can actually be as much as 65, or it could actually go down plus or minus 10. This is actually normal to production facilities. One of the things that we do actually with our keyboards and our mice is the micro switches, we actually tune them to be much more consistent. So that means that the actual feel is really nice. We already pre-lubricate them. We have an optimized actually housing material, palm and other things to reduce friction and really allow for a nice kind of smooth movement and a really nice tone to them. So I would say if you go with the Snow switches, you're going to have a great experience. If you want some other recommendations on maybe some alternates, if you did want to spend the extra money to buy an aftermarket switch to roll into the keyboard, let me know and I can give you a number of recommendations. I've probably tried out, more than 200 different types of switch variants. There's always a different type of switch, and it becomes a lot of variable and feel. One thing that I will tell people, though, that they forget about the switch is that the actual keycap in itself can heavily influence the tonal characteristics of your switch. So all of our units are already going to come with very nice PBT-based keycaps, and they're kind of balanced not only for the longevity, but also for the acoustics of the keyboard. But if you were to switch out your keycaps, then your keycaps, depending on the height of the keycap and even the material, it can significantly change how the switch sounds. Some switches will end up becoming much louder, some will become a little bit deeper, some can become much more pingy. It depends very much on the material. Take, for instance, like when I switched one of my ASUS and I used ceramic keycaps, it sounded very different than, let's say, the ABS, which also sounded very different from the PBT. So it is kind of one of the cool things that you can do when you start to do a customization, but you can also easily go down a rabbit hole that can be quite costly, and it can be quite variable in terms of the experience. Okay. Any which ways. So let's go ahead and get into some of the items here as far as some of the new products. We don't want to kind of go too much on a tangent. So let me go ahead and bring up our first products that we're going to talk about. So we're going to go into monitors. I saw that there were some questions on some of those displays. I might have already covered many. I covered almost, I think, all of the new OLED displays in the prior live stream. So I'd recommend if you're looking for updates on this and I don't cover it in this model, I'll go back and check the questions and answer it quickly if there's something that I can note on quickly. But for the most part, I pretty much covered every single current release that we've had from OLED and upcoming releases in the last live stream. So that would be PCDIY live stream 121. This is 122. But with that, let's go ahead and get into new monitors that we have, and we'll go from there. So the first monitor that we're going to actually touch on is going to be this guy. This is going to be the ROG STRIX XG27ACDMS. It's a big name in terms of the model number, but I think this is going to be definitely one of my most exciting releases. Now, right now, we already have offered a pretty price aggressive model, which is a 1440p, 240 hertz glossy based derivative of our original ROG Swift PG27AQDM. And that model has sometimes even slipped below its MSRP price point, and you could sometimes have seen it as go down as little as like 620, around that price point, like 650 to about like 630 ish in terms of that price band. But that's been due to promotions. This panel I find really exciting because I think it's going to kind of be the best almost bang for your buck based model that's going to be available. We do have another updated model that will be coming that will be using the new a WOLED based panel technology as opposed to QD OLED. ASUS is the only manufacturer in the industry right now that you will have that offers both QD OLED and WOLED. The majority of the competitors on the market are generally going to be QD OLED solutions, with the exception of LG, which LG of course offers WOLED solutions, but ASUS actually offers both, along with all of the kind of special sauce that we bring that I feel allows us to offer best-in-class displays, regardless of whether you're looking at our QD OLED solutions or our WOLED solutions. So let's go ahead and take a look at this model and touch on this one. As you can see, the price point is going to be coming in, I think, at a great price for this display, which is going to be at $699. If you kind of compare this to the original spec for even the original kind of 240 hertz, which we launched in the market, which was around $1,000, I think this is a great deal in terms that if you're have that bit of a higher budget, right? Because I think for a lot of people, they're generally usually somewhere around $250 to about maybe $450, maybe $500 for a monitor. You're still looking at LCDs. If you got a little bit more money to spend and you really want to step into HDR gaming, you want to step into a higher refresh rate level, you want that beautiful contrast experience that OLED gets and that really low pixel response time, this is going to definitely be one of the most compelling options that you have available. So what do you get with this guy? This is going to be QD OLED, 280 hertz, so a bit higher than the standard 240 hertz that we offer with the models that we already have at kind of the entry price point. You're also going to be getting the latest generation of our OLED Care technology. ASUS has more OLED Care preventive technologies than any other manufacturer, and we also exclusively have this Neo proximity sensor, which this is a small what's called time of flight sensor that is built into the monitor. It can very accurately detect your depth down to the millimeter level, and you can either pick preset targets or you can manually set your own distance. The great thing is, let's say you get a delivery at the door. If you get up, it will then turn off the display, but it just shuts off the display. It's very different than if your monitor or your system was to go into sleep or hibernation, then that can move stuff out of the display or can crash something. It can cause more issues. This actually just turns the monitor in off state. When you come back, it'll resume back up. So if you were in the middle of the game, you just walked away for a bit and you come back 15 minutes later, then you're good to go. Now, one of the reasons why people might ask, well, why do you want to do this? It's not just about fighting that you're maintaining a consistent image on the screen. There's a characteristic in OLED monitors that is called thermal ramping. The OLED substrate, the material itself, it's really important that you want to try to keep that at a lower temperature. The lower that we can keep the consistent temperature of the panel, that also reduces the likelihood for burn in. So when you keep essentially the monitor active, you're getting more heat that's being generated, and you get heat pooling kind of radiated across the panel, especially if you're playing at higher levels like HDR, where the monitor is at a brighter level. It's also going to produce more heat. This is part of the reason why we put in specialized technology like custom heat sinks, specialized firmware, and other things so that we can balance essentially the performance, the thermals, and all of these different factors. But if we can help to keep the monitor off when it doesn't need to be on, we can bring down the temperature. And again, that contributes to the overall lifespan, along with a lot of the really cool management features that we have within our OLED Care, which you can control on the fly, either using the on-screen display, or what I prefer, which is using Display Widget Center, which is a great way to be able to customize everything in the operating system. And you can use your keyboard and your mouse. A couple of other really nice things. We're the only vendor right now that offers adjustable HDR. So if you're not enjoying HDR gaming, we actually allow you to go in and actually tailor HDR customization with specialized presets. This is pretty cool because some games don't actually have HDR customization available to them. So this allows you to kind of fine tune the experience, because some HDR implementations, depending on the game or how it was mastered, you might want to actually dial things in to kind of optimally get the best experience. So we're giving you just more control, more flexibility. Factory calibration. Aspect ratio control is pretty cool because that actually allows you to run the monitor, let's say like in a different aspect ratio. Instead of like 27 inches, you could run it down to like 24 inches for maybe more competitive shooters, tighten up that field of view, and you can actually have different refresh rates and different resolution targets that you can actually dial in, which is pretty sweet. You get Type-C connectivity, which does support DisplayPort in terms of the actual video signal, and then higher than standard charging, but it's not full ultra high power charging. So like our flagship Swift monitors will have like 90 watts of power delivery. This is 15 watts. So this is going to be good for like charging your keyboard, your mice, your headsets, your phones, things along those lines. Of course, 3-year warranty along with burn-in protection, our uniform brightness limiting software. And this unit also still has, often overlooked, let me see if we have a little picture for it here. If we go into the gallery view, a lot of people miss this, but this also still maintains the little threaded mount design. The threaded mount design is really convenient, where if you want to be able to thread on something like a keyboard, a microphone, a camera, or a light on top of the monitor, you can do that. Or you can actually even get like a dual bracket adapter, and you can put like a camera and a light, and you don't have to have like extra arms and stuff like that. So a lot of our ROG displays all have this actual threaded mount design. A lot of people actually miss out on this. So I'm a big fan of actually always calling that feature out there. So this is going to be our kind of new entry in, along with the upcoming WOLED offering, and then also, of course, some promotions that we have on the AQDM monitor. You've got actually quite a number of options, and I think even going to Q4, you might be able to see even select opportunities where we have promo pricing for some of our OLED displays that get down to even around that $600 price band. There was one amazing option that we had, which was the PG27AQDM-R, which actually included the ROG monitor arm, which by itself is like almost like $150 with the OLED display. And I think on promo, it was like $630, which was crazy because it was literally like giving you the monitor arm for free. Plus the monitor was below its MSRP. I don't know if we still have that promotion going live, but that was an amazing deal. When I saw that, I was like, man, I almost picked one up. But you see right here, if that promo is still live. If it is, I'll share it with you guys and we can drop it in the chat. Nope, this was on promo. You can see right here. And this is why in the stream we try to also plug in the promos when we do have them running. You can see $899, but this monitor is pretty cool. This is actually the AQDM, so the original 240 hertz space WOLED solution, but it comes included with the ROG monitor arm. So if you're somebody that doesn't want to use the traditional base and stand, you're ready to get a really nice premium actually monitor arm that comes included with it. So before we go to the next monitor, I'm going to drop that into the chat. I'm also going to double check to see if there's any questions that anybody had before I go into the next display. So let me go ahead and drop this one in there, and we'll see if we got any questions that might have popped up right there. So give me 1 second. Deepak is waiting for 4K tandem. So right now there's no immediate plans for 4K tandem. Tandem will be quite exciting. Of course, we will be releasing the upcoming tandem-based display with, of course, the -W derivative, which will be a 1440p, 540 hertz display, and then it has that HD toggle option up to the 720 hertz. I talked about that in the prior stream, so that model will still be coming up soon. Yeah, pretty exciting right there. Let's see, does the TUF Gaming version of the ACS, I love the sensor in my monitor? No, so right now, currently the TUF Gaming lineup has no OLED displays. So if you look at anything in our TUF Gaming series, it's always going to be an LCD. As of right now, the only OLED products that we offer are going to be either under the ROG Swift banner or the ROG STRIX banner under the XG series. Those are the two options. Whether or not that will change, of course, next year, as far as us maybe offering a new kind of class of kind of sweet spot pricing for like a TUF Gaming based monitor, we'll see. But I think still right now, just because of where OLED is sitting, I don't really see probably getting really below kind of like that $500 price band, where the vast majority of our TUF Gaming displays, including our new TUF Gaming 5 series, really are sitting at around about like they go down to almost about $130 for some of the most entry-level TUF Gaming products. And then you go up to around maybe like $400 or so, right? So from that perspective, I don't see OLED kind of getting integrated within the TUF Gaming lineup for the foreseeable future. So you will continue to see OLED really be under ROG, either ROG Swift or ROG Strix series products, right? Starship Squid is asking, is the OLED support Dolby Vision? As of right now, we are one of the only vendors that do have actually OLED displays that do support Dolby Vision. One important distinction to keep in mind is that right now Dolby Vision is not available on any of our WOLED solutions. It is only available on our QD-OLED solutions. So an example is if you look at our PG32 UCDM versus our PG32 UCDP, they're both 4K, they're both 32 inches, they're both OLED panel technology, one's WOLED, one's QD-OLED, but the UCDM has Dolby Vision, which is the UCDP does not have Dolby Vision. There's of course some other kind of differentiation points in that, but do keep in mind. So essentially, if you really do care about Dolby Vision, you have certain content that you're consuming. This is generally going to be not really, I would say, from a gaming perspective relevant. It would be more so if you're probably watching more streaming on-demand content. So let's say you're watching maybe Disney Plus or certain content or something like that that has Dolby Vision mastering, and you want access to that, then you definitely would want to consider a QD OLED-based solution that does have Dolby Vision certification. And we do list the Dolby Vision certification under the tech specs if you want to confirm whether the monitor has that. Okay. All right, so let's go into the next one here. Any expected release date? Sorry, I'm not sure which monitor you're asking about in terms of the release date. Okay. Daniel goes, is there a technical factor limiting the usage of DisplayPoint 2.1 in high-end flagship WOLED monitors? So I think the thing you have to keep in mind is that when the original kind of UCDP was designed and developed, this was actually even predating the actual kind of the mass release of the 50 series GPUs. And so one, there wasn't even long length DP cables. They were still actually even validation. The GPUs weren't even out. And even right now, legitimately, the only people that use DP 2.1 would have to be a 50 series GPU user. And you really get into the great debate on whether or not it really carries a benefit. The reality is, for us, there's minimal reason to kind of refresh and go through an entire validation cycle to do that. Now, we have done that with the PG32 UCDM. We have the PG32 UCDM-R, which we just updated to include the Neo proximity sensor and DP 2.1. We will be evaluating whether or not we might do this for the UCDP, but as of right now, we have no immediate plans for a refresh that would incorporate DP 2.1. So you would still be using DSE there. And in my estimation, and really if you kind of go by industry consensus, there's no visual difference between the presentation. Really, the most key benefit that you get, I would say, going from DP 2.1 as opposed to using DSE is going to be the black box effect, right? When you're alt tabbing, I would say that, of course, the seamlessness of the alt tab experience is great when you don't have DSE, because, of course, the moment that you have to go from one kind of presentation or image that's being presented, there's a change, and that has to be readjusted because of the compression that's happening with DSE, right? So under that side, we are definitely aware that some people would like that, but if you really look, again, the other monitors on the market within that don't also have that. So it really just comes down to a timing and a validation cycle. And right now there's a lot of challenges from production and the timelines that you need for that. If you're just wondering on average, probably to do something as validation as simple as just adding in a new function or feature or like a electronics package that would allow for that functionality, we would probably at least be looking about 3 months, if not longer, just to probably do the validation work and then the production updating and scheduling and then producing it out. And that's quite a bit of an undertaking that can affect inventory management and a lot of other things that we have to account for. So just right now, there's not an immediate need for it, but it is something that we are active and aware that we know that the community would love to see that spec. Especially, and as we continue to move forward, we're going to continue to look to implement that right in more and more products as we move forward. But as of right now, no plans to update the UCDP with a 2.1 derivative, right? All right, so let's go ahead and go into our next display. This one is going to be, I think, for those of you that are in a super limited budget, maybe you're a first-time builder, and you're just looking for a great high refresh rate gaming display that doesn't break the bank, some good color gamut performance, right? And, you know, from a solid manufacturer like ASUS, right? So this monitor right here is going to be the TUF Gaming VG25Q MRL5A. And the TUF Gaming 5 series is a really cool series that we've introduced really the value proposition that we wanted to offer with these TUF Gaming 5 series was, in total, we have about 10 new TUF Gaming 5 series monitors, which again go pretty much across the board from a number of different 1080p based solutions to 1440p solutions. I think a new 4K option, and even actually a new 34-inch ultra-wide option, that are all really about setting an outstanding kind of price to performance option. So I talked about a couple of these in the 1440p segmentation in the last PCDIY stream. This one, of course, at this more aggressive price point, we're not looking at 1440p, we're looking at 1080p. So again, this is where I was saying great maybe for a first-time builder or somebody that, like I said, doesn't want to focus so much on, like I said, that higher refresh rate with the higher resolution. So let me go ahead and give you guys the breakdown on this guy. And here, we'll go ahead and break it down. So this is going to, again, be under the new TUF Gaming 5 series. Quite a number of displays here, and especially, like I said, if your budget's in around that like 250 to like 450 bucks, definitely take a look at either the price promos that we have currently on the XG series monitors under the ROG STRIX lineup, or these TUF Gaming 5 monitors. There's some really great options that we have there at that 250, 299, 300, 350 kind of dollars. So this one, you'll see 24.5 inch. It's a fast IPS, so it's the latest generation IPS based panel technology, 310 hertz. So for many users, they're still, you know, at that 144 or 165. So here you're getting a massive uplift, not only in the panel performance, where it'll also have better pixel response time, but you're also getting that huge uplift in terms of the refresh rate performance. This is certified for VRR performance with AMD FreeSync. It doesn't have formal G-Sync compatibility, so to keep that in mind, you could essentially force G-Sync operation, but there is a difference between our monitors that also do actually hallmark G-Sync compatibility, because that means that it did actually have to get qualified and pass through NVIDIA's labs to formally accept the G-Sync compatibility standard. Does not mean that the monitor cannot run in that mode, and some people wonder about that, is that there is a difference between attempting to force G-Sync compliance as opposed to actually it being certified with G-Sync compatibility or full G-Sync certification. ELMB Sync is really cool to be able to see on a monitor this inexpensive, where we have our backlight strobing technology, which is great to be able to improve motion clarity performance, especially if you can't get up to around this ultra high refresh rate. If you want to run at a lower refresh rate, you get a little bit of a brightness reduction, but you can definitely see a notable increase in terms of the motion clarity performance. So this can be a nice option for maybe people want to be able to mix this up with a console, or maybe you've got an older system and, you know, later on you're going to upgrade to maybe a little bit of a faster system that could get you higher refresh rates and support those higher levels that the monitor supports, but maybe you're only able to, on average, be able to do like 160 to like 200 or something like that, right? So in that regard, the ELMB Sync is a very cool technology. This is also a higher than standard brightness monitor. Most people's entry-level displays are usually around 200 to 250 nits. This has a higher than standard brightness. And then also the almost essentially 100% sRGB coverage is great, because it means it's a well-rounded monitor for pretty much gaming and for general use, because if you can hit that 100% sRGB coverage, it's really solid. Now, that is going to be a difference when you take a look at some of the higher end ROG XG series monitors, or you look at some of the higher grade TUF Gaming displays in the 1440p segment. They are going to be what's called wide color gamut. So they're going to go over 100%. They're going to be like maybe like 110, 120, 130% sRGB. And what that generally just means is you're going to see a little bit more punchy colors. The colors will seem more pronounced, more dynamic. The sRGBs are just going to be kind of really true to life, really solid, really accurate. I love 100% sRGB. Generally, for my general usage, I will always default my monitor 100% sRGB. And then only if maybe I'm gaming will I go into a wide gamut mode, or I might go into an HDR mode. Although, while this does say HDR, because this is not a mini LED technology, and it doesn't support a much higher level of brightness, I would not game in HDR in this level, but it does support a higher standard than brightness. Also, a big fan, this monitor does have our display widget center. So again, you can control all of the OSD options in the operating system. The last thing that I'll also go ahead and note here is, let me go ahead and just go over into the tech specs and touch on this here. So we'll scroll down a little bit. You get DisplayPort, 2 HDMIs, and a 3.5 millimeter jack. And this is actually pretty nice right here. If you actually take a look at the adjustment range, you do get tilt, swivel, pivot, and height adjustment, and also that tripod mount. So many times at this low of a price point, you usually only get kind of tilt on the monitor. So still actually getting 4-way with the tripod is actually a pretty nice range. And then of course, all of our displays do come with a 3-year warranty, which is standard across the board. So again, if you're looking for a kind of a nice sweet spot display, first time gaming or just looking to kind of jump into something that's got a really well-rounded spec, I think this is a great option. And then literally, if you just jumped up to $300, if you're wondering what you could get for like $300, so if you were to spend $100 more, although we do have a couple number of monitors literally at like about $20 intervals going up from this 200 to 300. But at 300, we have a TUF Gaming 5 series monitor, which would be a 1440p wide gamut based monitor, and also support 300 hertz as well. So you could literally get double kind of like the resolution, right? Still ultra high refresh rate and a lot of the great feature set. So I'm a big fan of that display. Okay, so yeah, let me go ahead and drop this one into the chat right here. I quickly see if there's any questions on that side, and we'll go from there. Let me see. Sorry, was there any questions right there? Doesn't look like I'm seeing anything that might have popped up right there. Namor does ask a question: will future PBT keycaps that now have painted top extra symbols and side symbols also become light shine through? So generally with a PBT keycap, you are not going to get like a shine through, because inherently with PBT, it's going to be pretty much entirely covers the entirety of the keycap. We do have a new type of design option. So we actually have like on the ROG ASUS X, it's actually using one of the coolest new type of production standards, which you can actually get in keycap design, which will allow you to actually have visibility, improved light visibility on the side profiles for the actual keycap, while still maintaining a higher level of, I'd say, legibility and durability and resistance against like wear and shine than you would have from a non-PBT or double shot keycap. Because one of the disadvantages if you go with like what sometimes people call like a clear keycap or like a pudding keycap is that they'll look cool, they let a lot of brightness kind of shine through, but the disadvantage that they have is that they'll wear pretty quickly based on the way that the actual legend's printed, because you're pretty much never going to see a double shot based design within those type of designs. So with this one right here, these units actually are utilizing a pretty cool design implementation that we have. So let me see if there's a little bit of a closer image. So on this side, you'll see that here the primary legend, right, that's fully kind of opaque and solid, but actually on the sides are translucent, right? And then also this has the diffuser that we have within our actually switch design, which also gives it a really nice level of kind of diffusion and lighting. So these are what are referred to as dye supplemented keycaps. So still kind of the gold standard for the highest level of durability and kind of legibility over time and resist against sheen or kind of wear on the keycap would be a PBT double shot cap. But these are quite nice. So I would still prefer something like this than kind of going to a fully kind of more transparent base keycap, which again, you could roll your keycaps if you want really to kind of go that. Just keep in mind that I would say, especially for gaming and you're heavily typing, be ready like in 6 months, you'll start to see more legend fading and wear against the keycap with a lot of shine also on the keycap as well. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead. And this is also why the reason why we on ROG based keyboards, they pretty much almost exclusively use PBT based keycaps because we really want the reliability and the durability to be very, very high. Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions on that monitor? Nope, it doesn't look like it. So we've got the TUF Gaming display there. Okay, cool. All right. One other display that I want to go ahead and touch on. This one is going to be a little bit less exciting for some of you, I think, within the group, because most of you guys are generally on the gaming side of the fence. But I do like to kind of touch on any displays that we do introduce. It's just part of kind of the normal ASUS family of displays. So this is going to be our BE27ACDMS. So this is technically under our business series, although it could be just kind of a general user-based display. I like this monitor just because normally at the price band that you get this, you're usually going to be removing kind of things like four-way ergonomics and some other elements. So we definitely offer kind of gaming displays that could give you a higher refresh rate and kind of a nice resolution. But if you're maybe not as focused on kind of on the gaming side of the fence, this is a really nice, well-balanced display. So you get a 1440p display, IPS, 120 hertz, HDMI and DP. You get full four-way ergonomic adjustment. It also has a nice little slotted design right here so that you can slide in things. to the base of the display, which I really like as well. And you still get also a USB hub, which is also integrated, which you wouldn't normally see at kind of this price band. So at $240, it's a very well kind of total balanced monitor. And I still think even with the base high refresh rate, it's nice from that option. Now at $230, we're definitely already going to have a huge number of gaming displays. If your focus is really going to see, I'd say, be at a pixel response and also wanting to focus at refresh rate. But if you're just looking kind of for a more general purpose monitor, I think this is a really nice option to be able to integrate in there. And again, the main reason why is if we kind of look at some of our entry 1440p displays, they won't give us, let's say, that integrated USB hub, or you're not going to get the full four-way ergonomic support on this display. So I like that it kind of has everything that I would want from a general user type of display experience, but I'm also getting that nice uplift to now even 120 hertz, which even for desktop productivity is quite nice because it just means your windows open up a more snappy, right? As you move things, there's less kind of blurring. It just looks overall clear. It looks sharper. There's less eye fatigue. So that is going to be the BE27AQG. And that guy is going to be coming in at $230. Stay tuned for you guys that are interested in some promos. I do got some promos that we'll be touching on. So if you're looking for some cool deals, we'll definitely have some promotions that are going to be touched on here. Let me go ahead and drop that one in there. Liquid House Ghost says, I wonder if 2026 will become more sensitive. You know, I think the reality is that there's no way everybody asks for monitor names to make more sense. It's impossible. And part of the reason why is because the spec permutations you have to have don't make it easy. The only way that you could really have simpler names is you would have to literally have a very small number of models. And even then the spec, how would you start defining where the spec changes, right? Because what do you care about wanting to know? Because even in the base things, we actually have something called a naming rule. And what I've actually asked the team is to consider having like a little, what we call naming rule kind of click button on our product page, which would actually allow you to understand what the end letter designations mean. So certain letter designations, some of them are very apparent. So like if you look at a ROG monitor, like the XG27UCG, the -W means that it's a white monitor, right? Or the UC, actually the U is actually a designation for 4K. That's the reason why the PG32UCDM, it's a 4K display. The PG32UCDP, it has the U because it's a 4K. So anytime you see the U is always a 4K. But if you don't know those things, you don't know what you're looking for. But that's actually the main challenge that you really get is how else do you reinforce that without then having an exceedingly long name within that, right? It becomes literally, you have to have like a complex naming convention because you need to know, is it an OLED screen? Is it an LCD screen? Is it ultra wide? Is it not ultra wide? Does it have a high refresh rate, right? You have all these kind of permutations that and you just end up having to add a letter to denote some type of specification on the monitor. And with monitors now having so many functions, features, and specs that have to be accounted for, it makes these model names quite challenging, right? So it is a tricky thing. And we're always looking for ways to improve upon that. So definitely, if anybody in the community has thoughts on how they'd like to see that improved, we definitely love to hear their thoughts on that side. All right, so that is going to go ahead and take us from monitors. Let's go into some motherboards. All right, so we've got some new motherboards to be able to go ahead and touch on. The first one is actually going to be for those that are interested in a micro ATX based motherboard. And this is going to be the TUF Gaming B850M-Plus Wi-Fi. So this is going to be a great option. So like if you want to build in something like our AP201 or AP202 or A21, any number of our ATX micro ATX chassis, or then again any other chassis for some from some of our partners out there, this is a great option. Not too expensive in terms of the price point, especially when you kind of look at all of the spec that you're going to get on this model. So let's go ahead and bring this guy up here. And we'll take a look here. So when we take a look at it, it's going to be B850 chipset. It's got some really nice dense heat sinks on there to be able to make sure that you got stability and reliability, whether you want to keep it stock or overclocked. Power delivery is more than enough in terms of a 14+2+1 base power delivery design for any CPU. Doesn't matter, you want to run a 9700X to an X3D to a 9950X, everything would be supported on here. This unit is also going to be supporting some really nice I/O specs. So you get 20 gigabit space, you get Wi-Fi 7, integrated I/O shield, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. You're also going to even get the quick release design for the graphics card, which I love. So even on a micro ATX board, you get the quick release based design implementation. When we take a look here and we jump into some of the base spec, It's also well balanced in terms that the M.2 configuration is going to be, you can see right here that you have a total of 3 M.2 slots that are on the motherboard. So that's nice for micro ATX based board. One of those is going to be Gen 5 and the other 2 are going to be Gen 4 that are going to be on this motherboard. And then when you take a look at the actual port configuration, quite nice in terms of the actual total port count that you have. Of course, internally you got a Type-C and then you got a legacy USB 3. So that's going to be a port there. Then you got 2 ports there. Then you got your USB ports internally. But if we head over to the rear, let's go ahead and take a look at the rear. I think this is really nice for a micro ATX board. So you got 4, then you got 2, then you got another 2 here. So that's going to be 4, that's going to be 8, and then you get 12. So 12 ports on a micro ATX board. I think that's a fantastic range of options right there. Then you get your DP, your HDMI, your Wi-Fi 7 with the quick antenna design. You also even get a clear CMOS button. This is exceedingly rare. Pushed for this to be able to get this. We don't normally have clear CMOS on TUF Gaming best motherboards. Even in this most recent generation, we made a big push to now introduce clear CMOS across all ROG motherboards, including ROG STRIX. So in the last generation was the first time that we actually included from the Dash A to the Dash H, to the Dash E, to the Dash F, any one of the ROG Strix models, they all had clear CMOS, where we used to only give you clear CMOS on the Dash E, and then the models even below that on the ROG Strix didn't have that. So this is actually really cool to be able to see clear CMOS on this board, along, of course, with the USB BIOS flashback. So really well balanced on here. So big fan of this guy. Again, coming at $260, I think a great option for those of you that are going to be looking for a micro ATX based board. Now, one that I wanted to throw in a sleeper here that we actually released that I don't think I covered in my last kind of big update when I brought the stream back recently that I wanted to touch on is actually a sleeper release that we did for white. So, of course, for many of our micro ATX chassis, we do actually have white derivatives, and white micro ATX is definitely on the rare side. So I did want to show you this, guys, is that we do actually also have a white version of this board. So another great option right here. So let me go ahead and show you this one. I'm going to remove the pricing band because the pricing band, it's actually technically the same. We don't charge you any more for it, but still I want to remove it because it's a different model. But you can see here, this is the TUF Gaming B850 Plus Wi-Fi 7W. The W denotes that it's white. This model even has that really nice white PCB on there. I think it looks fantastic. So again, whether you want to go with a white or black board, this is a great update here because previously we would only occasionally have like an ROG Strix G-class board that would be in white, which would generally be probably in the mid $300 price band. So to be able to offer it in this mid kind of $250-ish price band, both the white and black option, definitely check those out. So I'm going to go ahead and drop these in the chat if anybody has any interest on a micro ATX based motherboard offering here. So let me go ahead and drop this in here and go from there. BTF, no micro ATX BTF updates plans. So right now, we previously did have a micro ATX BTF, but right now there's nothing on the roadmap. So right now, the only pending BTF motherboard that we haven't released yet that we've already announced that I already brought up in the prior stream in 121 is the X870 Hero. So that will round out our 2 AMD offerings. So as a whole, pretty much for the remainder of the year, what you'll see from BTF is we'll have the Maximus Z890 Hero BTF motherboard. So that'll be a flagship black offering that we'll have on the Intel side. And then on AMD, AMD has 2 offerings where we have the TUF Gaming B850 white BTF based motherboard. And that one's available right now. And that, like I said, is going to be white. And then black will have the X870 Hero BTF based motherboard. And that one should be available later this month. Okay. So we'll have a total of 3 BTF based motherboards, 2 for AMD and 1 for Intel. And no micro ATX at this time. The first thing is I want faster BIOS boot time. So technically, I think you're wrong when you're referring to boot. You probably mean post because your boot only applies when you're actually booting into your operating system or you're booting into something. Your post is actually when your system is powering on and initializing hardware. Post time can be quite variable though. So the reality is you could build 2 systems with the same exact motherboard and you can have entirely different post times because the post has to account for initializing your system configuration. If you're running an overclock, if you're running 2 DIMMs versus where you're running 4 DIMMs, if you're running 4 M.2 SSDs versus running one M.2 SSD, if you're running actually different types of USB devices that actually have secondary controllers or hubs associated with them, that can also affect the post time. So when people say that they want that, it's quite challenging, because when we test, we actually have a target time that we set as a compliance standard, which is actually quite good, but you will have quite a bit of variance depending on the permutations of your system, the configurations of those systems, and how they're running. If you think there's something really anomalous, then definitely share it back to our team. And it is something that we can always attempt to look at. But also, there can be disadvantages to attempting to force a system to try to cycle too quickly through a post. And part of that actually is that it can negate interoperability compatibility. Some devices require a certain amount of initialization time. Kind of think about it where it's like, if somebody was standing right in front of me and when I was talking to them, they're going to probably hear everything I'm saying. But if I'm talking and then all of a sudden they're walking right past me, I mean, they're going to get to wherever they wanted to go more quickly, but they might only hear a little bit of what I heard because they're already moving by. The same thing can actually happen is when the system is actually initializing. If you were to force things to kind of sequence too quickly or out of potential order, you can actually affect interoperability and compatibility negatively. So there's a fine line of trying to make sure that we can initialize everything in the right kind of cycled process. This is actually also the reason why that actually system related products, so things like laptops, generally have the shortest or the quickest post times of any products that are on the market, because they don't have third-party items. Everything is packed in and can be super optimized for exactly the hardware that comes in there. And the only thing that they have to account for is initializing the ports that they have from supplemental devices. And even there, they can do some things like they can actually decide to not initialize a port until the operating system goes inactive, as opposed to on our side, we generally do want to initialize sometimes devices even before your OS loads, because we want to be able to detect your keyboard and your mouse. Take, for instance, if you want to be able to hit the delete button to get into the UEFI BIOS, right? So we have different sets of requirement standards than even exist on something that might seem like it's the same system, but it's actually entirely different. Okay, hopefully that gives you a little bit of feedback or perspective on that side, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's go into where was that? Sorry, motherboards, right? Yeah. So our next motherboard, this one's going to be a little bit out of the standard, but if you guys don't know, in terms of our motherboard lineup, we have our Prime series of motherboards. We then have TUF Gaming. We have ROG STRIX. We have ROG formal, so that means no strict, and then we have PROART, but we also have our WS series of products. And so our WS are defined, of course, as workstation series products. And so the workstation series products are going to be definitely for individuals that, of course, are going to be doing more prosumer or professional type of workloads. They generally will offer more specialized validation options or validation for specialized add-in cards. So things like a quad gigabit Ethernet card, or maybe like a 10G adapter, or specialized kind of add-in control cards, like things like maybe like a storage controller adapter or things like that. You'll also generally see out-of-band management options. So where like you can actually work with the motherboard independent of the operating system. Like you can actually remotely power it on or monitor it or do updates or different things like that. There's quite a number of things that cause distinction between our WS motherboards, but either which way, let me go ahead and bring this one up to you guys and check it out. It's got a pretty cool different design as well. I think for me, one of the coolest things that I love about this is it's one of the rare options that if you want 10G networking and you want a micro ATX motherboard, this is beyond a super rare item. Normally you would have to buy like a 10G add-in card to be able to get that type of spec support. So this motherboard is going to give you B850. That means you can still actually overclock the DRAM. You could still actually do performance tuning for the CPU if you want PBO. You still have a robust power delivery section with VRM heatsinks, but you're also going to get some cool things that you wouldn't normally see. So one of the most key specs is going to, of course, that this has both 10 gigabit networking and also 2.5 gigabit networking available to you. In addition to that, you're also going to have the MCIO NVMe based connection, and you're going to have the IPMI remote management. So there's actually a hardware control chip that allows for out-of-band management options, so you can be able to remote actually into this system and to be able to have independent of the operating system hardware level control to the platform, which is pretty sweet. You can also see here, even in terms of the actual PCIe layout setup, this is actually a bit different than what you would traditionally have on standard-based motherboard designs. And the MCIO NVMe based support is pretty interesting because this will actually allow for higher speed based, higher density, high speed PCIe NVMe based type of storage solutions. So traditionally with M.2 is nice, but it was never really designed for desktop based products. It was really designed for laptops, and it just ended up becoming very popular for motherboards. The main disadvantage is power, thermals, and densities because it was designed for something that had very little Z height, which was a laptop. Motherboards have tons of space in a chassis, which is the reason why most of our storage devices have always been much bigger, because we have a lot more space. This is the reason why U.2 and U.3, which hasn't seen a lot of momentum within the standard space, is used in the server and workstation space, because we don't want to be limited by power, density, or even heat. But the cool thing about that is if you look and you purchase a U.2 or U.3 drives, instead of being limited to only 8 terabytes, which right now it's pretty even still rare for M.2 SSDs, you can't get everything in 8 terabytes. Most common sizes are 1, 2, and 4, with an occasional spattering of 8 terabyte drives. You can easily get 12, 16, 20, 24, 30. I think actually the most recent updates that they have for the U.2 and U.3 specification standard for PCIe NVMe storage drives are actually 60 terabyte volumes. They're approximately about the size of like 2.5 inch drives. They have a little bit more Z height, but if you really want high density, it's great. Take for instance, in one of my systems, I'm using actually a 16 terabyte single U.2 base SSD. I love it because then I don't have to use multiple slots. I don't have to worry about even actually pulling out the motherboard or different stuff, pulling out a graphics card to get to a slot on the motherboard. I just use my actual U.2 cable, bam, I'm good to go. So I'm a big fan of it, but again, this is more common within that space. So this is an addition here. If you're somebody that's looking for high-speed network connectivity, specialized storage expansion, and the out-of-band management options, take a look at our Pro WS-based motherboard and some of what the other options that we have within that ecosystem. So there you guys go on that side. So that is going to be the Pro WS. All right. Let me go ahead and drop this into the chat. Let me see anything. Creepy Thin Boy. What's the goal ideology difference between ProArt and WS? So ProArt, we would say, really kind of hits, I'd say, between kind of the prosumer. So there are even gamers that really love ProArt, and they just love it because it has a more minimal, refined styling, right? There's no RGB lighting. It has just a really clean black aesthetic, and it's very stylized. So there's some gamers that love ProArt, although the intent with ProArt was really for creators, right? For people that are in photography, videography, animation, science and simulation workflows, but they might not be somebody that's like, they might be like a hobbyist. They could be actually a professional user that uses it for work. So there is kind of like in a Venn diagram, like a crossover between WS users and ProArt users. And some of the tenets that we have specifically with ProArt, such as generally a focus on high-speed connectivity, improved reliability and durability with more validation or higher rated spec components, things along those lines, there's going to be a consistency within that. Where you're going to generally get more delineation within Workstation is Workstation specifically will then support more advanced type of specifications that are really targeted towards that professional series user. So that's going to be meaning using chipsets that have much more dense memory support, right? So that we have workstation motherboards like the TRX-650, right, where you can run, you know, much higher memory densities. You have chipsets that have more PCI lane allocation support, right? You have way more slots available to you onto the motherboard. So I would say there's a similar base between ProArt and WS, but let's say kind of ProArt can be an entry into WS and then would scale out for the most demanding users into a WS kind of base segmentation. And WS users could still also similarly be kind of those more professional users that are really focusing at stability and reliability. Also, traditionally in the past, there used to be a little bit more delineation that WS was generally where you would also see ECC memory support and registered memory support, and you wouldn't see that on consumer motherboards. But now at least we have seen some integration through updated microcode support that on ProArt motherboards, you can have select ECC memory support, but it's not as common. So that has been also kind of one of the delineators between that. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense there. Okay. All right. Retro goes, hey ASUS, how you doing? I just bought the Astro 5090, man. Very lucky for you. You bought peak graphics card, right? It does not get better than the ROG Astro. It's an absolute stunning card. It's just built to a super high standard. It's just beastly cooler, looks fantastic, performs great, and it's got so many cool features to it. So thanks, man, for being Team ROG and Team Astro, man. It's a fantastic card. I definitely think there's probably some people in the chat that are going to be jealous of you. All right, so we did the TUF Gaming B850M-Plus. We also noted that, of course, we have the right version. We just finished talking about the WS main motherboard. We, of course, highlighted that new entry OLED offering that we have under the ROG STRIX lineup. We talked about the TUF Gaming, of course, entry option that we have there at the 1080p ultra high refresh rate with 300 hertz. We also did the BE27ACDMS. So going into our next couple of updates here, let's go into, I guess, GPU and chassis quickly. So this one is going to be very minimal. I'm just going to touch on it because I already noted this in the prior stream. But the introduction of, our course, our PROART graphics cards. We're right now kind of Q4 is kind of seeing the solidification of, one, we started releasing all of our white series GPUs, our BTF-based GPUs, the Noctua GPUs, and the ProArt. So ProArt is really kind of the last series that has not been released, along with some of the BTF-based derivatives, although some of the BTFs have already been put out into market. So the ProArt, we have specifically already announced a a 5080 and a 5070 Ti. So the 5070 Ti is, as you noted right here, is going to be coming at 910, and then we have the 5080 derivative. Now keep in mind that there is going to be a secondary version of the ProArt based graphics cards that are going to be the SSD version. The SSD version will mean that the actual graphics card on its rear has a PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 SSD slot on there. That when you slot that onto a motherboard that supports PCI bifurcation, means that that slot will actually be able to provide data bandwidth to both the GPU and to the actual M.2 SSD simultaneously. This could be quite exciting for just users that are looking for a more streamlined, easy installation experience, along with better thermal performance, or for people that are in small form factor builds, a great way to be able to add an M.2 SSD slot to the system, where normally you would be limited. You wouldn't have the ability to add another M.2 SSD because the motherboard has no more space. So we will, again, it's important to note, you will see within the model name, it will say ProArt 5070 5080, and then we'll see like SSD, right? Because that will be the SSD version versus this model does not. And you'll also be able to clearly denote this by looking at the back of the graphics card. So if we take a look here at the back, you'll notice that there's no kind of like raised heatsink. On the SSD version, there's kind of like a raised heatsink design where you would remove the heatsink and you would slot in the M.2 SSD, put the heatsink back on, and you would be good to go. So yeah, this is going to be the ProArt 5070. For some people that are asking kind of what is the main difference between this and the Prime series based graphics cards, because the Prime series cards are also 2.5 slot. They're the same length in terms of the dimension. The main differences are going to be a couple of key factors. So if we take a look at the card, one, there is going to be a nicer anodized heatsink on the inside. This is a black heatsink versus the heatsink on the Prime series are going to be silver. For this generation, we did add in this kind of like nice little wood accent design that we have on the ProArt, along with a little bit, just very subtle RGB illumination. Of course, you can control the lighting there, or you can turn it entirely off. You don't have to use it. Of course, the Prime cards are not going to have the wood grain or the RGB illumination. The capacitors are also different. They are a higher rated specification set on the ProArt series graphics cards than we have on the Prime series cards. Not to say the Prime cards are bad, because the Prime cards are built very well, and even the Prime 5070 Ti or 5080 come with very nice advancements and improvements that you won't even see amongst many competitors, even in their quote-unquote higher series, things like our GPU guard or our phase change thermal pad that we're using, or even more thermal pads for the actual backplate. There are some vendors that literally, we have designs that we've seen that they don't have any thermal pads for the backplate, and then you compare it to our design, and our model has, 5 thermal pads for the backplate alone, where competitors, I can show you that there's competitors that have 0 on theirs, or they don't have a PCI power LED monitor, and we do have a PCI power LED monitor. Also, on the rear of the I/O, the graphics card, there's going to be a difference that you'll see on ProArt. You have DP, DP, Type-C, and HDMI. Now, in reality, you could have already made an active connection to any Type-C enabled monitor by just getting a DP to USB-C cable. But if you're somebody that's super specific on, you just want to use absolutely the USB-C to USB-C based cable design, this graphics card has natively that USB-C connection on the graphics card. So DP, DP, Type-C, and HDMI, versus if we were to look at the Prime is going to be different. It will not have that Type-C connectivity. Okay, so those are generally going to be the main differences. One thing that I will note that's also very cool, though, on all of our 50 series graphics cards, they of course all support our GPU Tweak 3 software. They also all now support our new software that we've recently released that gives you even more value proposition, which is going to be here. If I open up, go over here to show all. One is going to be MuseTree, and the other one is going to be this multi-LM tuner software, which is pretty sweet. MuseTree is our free application, which actually allows you to create generative AI locally, and it's not cloud-based. You can actually pick your generative modeling system and then be able to go ahead and enter in your prompts and then be able to make quick and easy adjustments locally rendered on your system. So if you want to be able to dabble in stuff, but you don't want to have to pay subscription or tokens cost, you don't want people to see what you're attempting to generate or do, and you just want that anonymity and privacy, it's a really great piece of software. I've actually been quite impressed with the usability and the functionality with it. And definitely, like I said, try it out. If you have an ASUS graphics card, it comes for free. It's a really cool piece of software. The multi-LM tuner also gives you a fantastic way that if you want to be able to start getting into messing around with LLMs, is that we give you a really nice, easy, accessible front end system that allows you to actually pick the LM model that you want. And again, you can do that all locally on your system. And there will be a special advantage to the SSD model where you can actually kind of offload portions of the LLM to run specifically on the SSD that's on the GPU. But regardless, you can run the multi-LM tuner software on any one of the ASUS 50 series graphics cards. So if you buy a ProArt, you buy TUF Gaming, if you buy a Prime, they all have actually access to MuseTree, and they all have access to the multi-LM tuner software, and there's no other vendor offering this type of comprehensive software suite. So I tell you, if you haven't tried it out, try it out. It's pretty cool. All right. Yeah, we'll go from there and go into our next products here. Let me see any quick questions right there. I'm a videographer and I'm in the market for a NAS. Does ASUS offer any NAS? No, we actually don't offer anything. I would recommend taking a look at our partner company, ASUS Store. They have a fantastic comprehensive portfolio if you're really looking for a NAS. Of course, with ASUS, you could do your own, build your own NAS, and you could use software like TrueNAS or OpenNAS, Open Media Vault, and be able to actually just build your own NAS. That's what I did with my system. Is I built it in a small compact chassis, my own motherboard, put in my own networking equipment, everything like that. There can be some benefits of course, utilizing the open ecosystem and the flexibility of the software and the configuration that you define, especially if you want more of the premium high-end IO spec. It definitely could be quite a bit cheaper than going with a more high-end NAS to be able to get things like 10G or 20 gigabits or 40 gigabits connectivity. If that's something you're interested in, maybe we could do a dedicated stream on how you actually go about building and specing out your own NAS at different price points. Another really nice option is you could also consider one of our mini PC solutions for a basic type of NAS setup, which can offer great power efficiency, great connectivity and performance. And we even have models which actually have dual Ethernet connectivity along with things like high-speed Wi-Fi 7. So you could have like Wi-Fi 7 with dual 2.5 gigabit NICs, if that makes sense. So there can be some options, but if you want a dedicated NAS, I would recommend checking out ASUS Store would be my recommendation to you. Okay. All right. Just bought the ROG Falcata and the ROG Spatha. I love the Spatha because I got big hands, and the Falcata is an awesome keyboard. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on here. That was the ProArt based graphics card. Update here on the power supply side. I talked about power supplies last time. So here, just giving you guys an update, you can see that we will be finally bringing in the ROG Strix Platinum. I talked about this, that we were going to be bringing it in Q4. So this is now finally the follow-up where we already have the ROG Strix Platinum standard models, so the black models. This is a really great option if you don't want to go into the Thors. The Thors are fantastic in terms if you want that newer ATX specification, you want the OLED display, but so many chassis, they don't even have a window for the wattage display. So if you just want an ultra performant platinum based power supply with our great build quality, you want the exclusive GPU voltage stabilizer design that you can only find on our ROG power supplies. This is a great way to get it without going into the Thor. So I'm really a big fan of the ROG Strix power supplies. And now we have a white model here with the ROG Strix Platinum White Edition. If you also want to save a little bit of money, I think I'm a big fan of the TUF Gaming the TUF Gaming white power supply version, which also comes with full white, fully etched modular cables, even including the end connector is actually gray. So it's really nice. Some vendors, they're kind of weird. They have the the power supply cable and then it still ends in a black terminal connector. So it still looks a little bit weird if you really kind of want that more kind of consistent white cohesive look. But both of them will have the same. But if you want the even more performance design, the ROG Strix model with the GaN MOSFETs, you also want the GPU voltage stabilizer design, then check out this model. So you can see coming at 250, we have the ROG Strix Platinum 1000 watt in white. Okay. So there we go. And there will be later also coming, there will be a white edition of the Thor 3, but that's going to still be quite a bit off. So as of right now, really for white power supplies, the three options that we have is we have the ROG Loki, an 850 watt in white. And then we have a TUF Gaming power supply, which is in white. And then we have the ROG STRIX 1000 watt, which is going to be in white. Okay. All right. And wrapping it up for the core component side before I get into my last updates, which are going to be some networking updates, which are going to be pretty cool. I want to get in and touch on the HELIOS. The HELIOS is going to be available soon. It's right now first going to be available in the Canadian market, so actually not not the US, but in Canada. And we will hopefully later in Q4, I don't know when in Q4, we're going to have it in North America. It could possibly maybe be by the very end of the year, although we have already brought in the HELIOS 2 Miku edition. So if you want the limited edition collaboration with Miku, the HELIOS 2 and the Miku version is right now actually available. But as far as the standard black or white HELIOS 2s, they'll probably be a little bit later on. So keep it tuned for the availability for the US-based release, but in Canada, you'll see being it very shortly. And a couple of the updates you can see here is, of course, that you can definitely see that it has the vibe and the look of the original HELIOS. But I would say the biggest changes are going to be, one is, of course, the front facade is you don't have that really cool kind of etched Mayan pattern design that we had from the original ROG Mayan pattern finishing, which I really love the look. Some people incorrectly thought that this created thermal issues. It really didn't, because in the vast majority of situations, you would be top mounting the radiator and your exhaust was happening at the top. It wasn't happening at the front. And there was still enough separation that you would still be able to have no issues in terms of airflow. I know that we have a couple builders like Snef. Snef did multiple builds in the HELIOS, and we had high-end builds and it was never an issue. So it's more kind of a perception issue, but to mitigate people's perception that they think that there's going to be restriction or issues with airflow, we took away that really beautiful glass panel finish that you had in front of the HELIOS, and now you go to a more airflow focus based design that we have within this model. So that's going to be one of the other updates. There are also, of course, some other fitment changes that we have within the model as well. But many other items are going to be pretty similar. Now, one of the things that we did do here is we spent a lot of time and effort to really optimize the performance and kind of do what we did with the GT302, which is our TUF Gaming chassis, and really focus for outstanding airflow performance and thermal performance from the included fans. So the unit is already going to come with these ultra performant 4 fans pre-installed, which not only give you great balance in terms of static pressure, but airflow at very impressive noise levels. So there's no reason to replace them out unless you absolutely really want to kind of go for RGB fans to kind of go in there. You're already going to get great thermal performance from the fans that are going to come in here. In most situations, you would probably be getting worse static pressure and worse airflow by getting aftermarket fans than using the fans that actually come installed. And that's not normally the case. So spent quite a bit of time here for us to really work on giving you a great experience from those inbox-based fans within the model. Okay. Like the prior model, you can do both vertical and horizontal mounting. You can also see that you got tons of space here. 450 millimeters. It's easily can support the largest graphics cards, including things like our ROG Astral. So of course, it's an ROG chassis. We'd love to be able to see it paired with other ROG components, but whether you use anybody else's graphics card or anybody else's motherboards, this can be a great chassis and a foundation for you. So you can see, of course, you can have horizontal mounting or vertical mounting. The choice is up to you. Like the original HELIOS, it also still comes with the straps. These are functional straps, which means you can actually lift the chassis with the straps, which especially if you fully kit out a build, it can be pretty heavy, and trying to pick it up from the bottom as opposed to being able to lift it and move it with the straps. I love using the straps on the HELIOS, as well as like even like on our chassis that have had it, like the GT501 or the GT502. I like the functional straps. If you really don't like the straps though, you can take them off. You can remove them entirely, but I think that they give the chassis a very cool, distinctive design aesthetic as well. Fan configurations you can see are pretty similar to what we had in the prior generation. You can see you got 120 and 140 millimeter support on both. So 140, 120 in the back. On the top, you have, of course, for a 280 or a 360. And then in the front, you can see, you can go ahead and do a 420 or a 360. So quite a bit of flexibility there. And then, of course, you can similarly see with the radiator support, as I noted, right, 420, 360, or 140, depending on those configurations. As always, keep in mind that when you're accounting for a radiator, you also still want to account for your total Z height. So the amount your radiator has in addition to whatever the height is of your fans. Take, for instance, we have fans like our TF120s, which are 25 millimeters thick, but then we also have fans like our TR120s, which are 28 millimeters thick. And then we even have fans that are thicker, like on our Ryujin cooler, which can go to 30 millimeters plus a thicker radiator. So you always want to account for the combination between the radiator and the fan thickness when accounting for these factors here. Some other little cool updates is I love our tool-free panel design, right? So no screws, you just press a button. And there's also an auto catch, so the panel won't actually fall off. So even if you just hit the eject button, the panel pretty much just sits. It doesn't fall off. There's plenty of people that I'm sure you've seen posted online that they show pictures of their side panels cracking and being damaged because once they remove the screw, nothing catches it and it just falls off. And we actually, for multiple generations, have had a design on many of our chassis which have like an integrated catch, which I really love. I don't know if Sniff is still here, if he's maybe ever experienced having that scenario, but I know I've even done it, even building as many systems as I've had scenarios where having that catch has been really nice because I click it and then I was like, my hand wasn't there to catch the panel and I didn't have to worry about anything because the catch just held the panel right in place and it didn't fall. Removable fan frames, which are always nice when you're having to mount rads or you're mounting fans. It's really nice and easy. And then this is a new update that we actually had that was kind of similar from our PROART 602 chassis, where we introduced this into the HELIOS 2, where you have a quick, easy design to lock in the graphics card. So normally when you're putting in your graphics card, sometimes there's some slag or some slop that you kind of have to mitigate for, and then you kind of got to hold everything and you're kind of trying to screw it all in. This is nice because you can put in the graphics card and then you can just with one hand rotate it and lock it in place with this design. So actually, I really like this type of design implementation. We also have these optimized 3D optimized structured front filters, which are easy to be able to pull out. Detachable rear PSU bracket for being able to add the PSU and then just slide it in there and you're kind of good to go. There's also an integrated GPU support that's built into the chassis, so you don't have to buy like an aftermarket GPU support. Some people might still want to use an aftermarket GPU support depending on the look or the feel, but it is already pre-installed in there. We also did optimize the mesh paneling. This also happened with some of our newer chassis compared to the very original Helios, where even the mesh filter size is very thin, one to still allow for airflow, but things like screws won't fall through to the bottom of the PSU cage. So if you've had a situation where you go in and you've had a screw where the screw drops and then you dropped it down and then you have to go into your PSU cabinet to get the screw, it can be frustrating, but you don't have that. And like any of the ROG chassis right now, all of them have been optimized, of course, for the Thor, because we want you to be able to show off that big, beautiful OLED wattage display. So as opposed to many chassis like here, my A31, where you can't see the power supply, you can actually see the display there if you want to be able to show it off. So the last but not least, one of the hallmarks that we had on the original Helios and on this Helios is massive front connectivity. Most chassis, sometimes they have like one port, maybe they have two, maybe they have three. So like one USB-C port and two Type-A ports. You're going to see this motherboard, it is stacked. It literally has dual USB-C, which is very rare. There's only a few motherboards, and ASUS makes them, that actually have dual USB-C on them. So not just one USB-C header, but a second internal USB-C header. And they also have been validated for high wattage supports. That means 60 watts of power delivery can be provided from that port. And then even dual front USB 3 ports. This is also a rarity where most motherboards on the market only have a single legacy front USB 3 header. So keep this in mind, because sometimes we get people, they buy the chassis and they're like, I don't have the ports, it doesn't work. And it's because they didn't pre-check that. So worst case, if you use a motherboard that only has them, it's entirely fine. Just means that those two ports won't work and this port won't work, right? So, but if you have a motherboard that has both the connectors, I'll show you like as an example right here. Let's use the X870-A gaming Wi-Fi. It's kind of an example. This is kind of cool because we introduced even having more front ports even on more entry-level boards. Although this is not super entry, if you look at the price point, this is pretty nice right now. This is on promo. This was actually a board I was going to show you guys on promotion. Normally $330, but right now $270. So that's a pretty nice savings you get. And if you look right here, this board has that USB-C, but it also has two front USB 3, which are actually even reinforced. This is actually also a cool little difference between TUF Gaming motherboards and ROG STRIX motherboards. ROG STRIX motherboards have reinforced USB 3 headers, where the standard header is present on the TUF Gaming based motherboard designs. But with two of those headers, of course, you can actually connect all four of those, so you can actually have all four of those ports be active. So there you go. So that is ultimately going to be the Helios 2. I think it is a cool design, and you guys can check it out. And I will let you know on a little bit of a teaser. We're not done. We have another very exciting ROG chassis waiting in the wings. I can't tell you any more than that. But if you love glass, you are looking for a nice, beautiful open build, and maybe the Hyperion is not your vibe, stay tuned. you might see something coming from ASUS later on. So I'm very excited about this chassis. All right. Let's go ahead and see if there's any quick questions that kind of came up there in the Helios 2. If not, we're going to go into the other items right there. What about a new Hyperion? There's no new plans for any new Hyperion. But like I said, we will have another high-end ROG chassis where we have not had a, like I said, just let's say more maybe panoramic type of design. So that's all I'm going to tell you. Just make sure and check it out. Liquid House, it looks like they're feeling it. It's great to know some of the best modders and builders in the game out there, and PC builders with Liquid House are a fan of the Helios design. Let me know. What do you think, John and Ellie? Did you prefer the front design? Let's see if we can maybe do a little bit of comparison. Let's see if we do a quick one before I leave that right there. Interesting. So Neymar says, the Helios 2 is too heavy. I would like some wheels like the ProArt case. Interesting. That's an interesting thing. That's good feedback. I appreciate that. I think by default, it's not too heavy, but I could definitely say, like, if you fully kit out the system, I could definitely see how, like, having support for, like, casters, like the PA602, which has support for casters, I think that would be pretty cool. So I do agree with you. I think that actually could be a nice, maybe, value point to see if our team could design integrate is actually putting in caster support. I don't know if they would want to put in wheels like we do in the PA602, where that one has 2 integrated wheels, but it also could support casters. But I definitely think supporting casters would be a nice feature. So I appreciate that feedback. Definitely something I'll share over. Will the pattern graphics card slot become standard? So we're trying to put that in more chassis. We started off with the PA602. We had a lot of people that really like that in the chassis. And I think with this ROG chassis, which should hopefully even be more popular than the PA602, hopefully we'll continue to see it present in more and more designs. So yeah, I would hope that we continue to see this. Yep. I fast charged my phone from the front USB port on my ROG motherboard. Pretty cool. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and just quickly look, and let's put kind of side by side really quick. Let me just go ahead and let's bring up the difference between Helios 1 and Helios 2. I should actually bring up some scenario images to kind of do it a little bit more, because the photography composition is going to look quite different between the first generation and this second generation, but we can at least kind of get a little bit of the vibe difference here. So let's do this. All right, so here you guys go. So actually, let me readjust this. All right, so there we go. Okay, so let me go ahead and remove this here for you guys. So here's the original Helios, and you can see in the front of the Helios, right, you still have definitely those callbacks, right? So you can definitely see that angered kind of geometric design is still definitely present. I think that this angled design with, of course, the brushed finish, along with, of course, the handles, very distinctive of the Helios. So you still kind of have that immediate vibe and feel. You can also, of course, see the cutout was also present, but the biggest change here is this really cool Mayan pattern tempered glass finish, which from the time they got produced to right now, there's still not really almost any chassis that had that type of design or looks like that. Still, for me, why I still actually really love this design, because I think it looks really cool and really distinct. And of course, here we kind of go with the more current mid-20-ish kind of vibe, right, where people really want that airflow focused presentation. You're also going to get more of a diffused kind of like lighting sensibility from fans that might be there if you went with RGB fans. But again, the pre-installed fans in this model are outstanding, ready for airflow and for static pressure, so you don't need to replace them. So that is also kind of be a notable difference. But what's everybody's thoughts there? Do I have a gallery view? Can I go to just straight gallery view? Yeah, so oh, this is going to be white. And we do have a white version and a black version of both these. So this is already going to be a little bit not fair, because we're kind of doing white to black. But there you guys can kind of see. So what do you like? Do you like the front facade, or you do not like the front facade? So there you guys can kind of see. And do I have a side? I don't think I have a side profile that I can do. Yeah, they didn't put a side profile image in there. Side profile is going to be pretty similar, but it does also change a little bit. But there you guys go. Helios 1 and Helios 2 is on there. And again, coming to US later, probably in Q4, available in Canada very shortly. All right. Let's see. So Helios 2 front provides more than before from our view versus the Helios 1. Vented and also stylized versus the glass. Digging the 2 a lot. Very cool, man. Thank you so much from feedback there from Liquid House. So let's go ahead and round out our networking updates here, guys. So for this, we're going to go ahead and touch on a couple of cool ones that might be a little bit kind of under the radar for some people. So let's go ahead and just bang through some of these pretty quickly here. So first one is going to be an update here for a basic USB 2.5 gigabit Ethernet adapter. Maybe you've got an older system, you're really happy with it. Maybe it's a laptop, maybe it's a mini PC, maybe it's a desktop, and maybe you want to be able to upgrade to 2.5 gigabit networking, and you don't want to even use an add-in card. We do have an add-in card available, but if you want to do it through USB, here you go. We've got the USB C2500 V2. We already had V1. You might be able to maybe find V1 at a little bit of promo pricing if it's still out there from some occasional retailers. But this model will be coming in, replaces it, and you're going to good to go. It's plug and play solution. You plug it in, you're all set, and you've got 2.5 gigabit networking. So if you want to be able to upgrade to 2.5 gigabit networking, bam, there you go. We also do have 10 gigabit add-in cards for PCIe, and we also have Wi-Fi 7 PCIe wireless adapters as well. And we also recently launched the ROG Wi-Fi 7 USB-based adapter, the ROG USB BE92, I believe, if you want to be able to also have Wi-Fi 7, but maybe you got an older system and you want to be able to add it via USB, you can have that as an option as well. So that is going to be that guy, and we're good to go on that side. So next one is going to be under our travel lineup, and this is going to be the RT-AX50 GO. So this is going to be our most compact travel router that we have made. This is super tiny. This guy is really, 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 really small. It's like literally like probably about yay big in terms of this. It's smaller than like the can. It's like I don't know how many ounces are the mini cans of like a soft drink. You know, you have already the small, the very small kind of like small compact cans, but then there's like even like a smaller like half height size. This is a very, very tiny product you can see right here. But some of the cool things that we have with this unit is that you still get Ethernet connectivity. This uses actually our USB WAN technology. So that means that you can take any iPhone or you can take any Android phone, plug this into the USB port, and we can take that 4 or 5G cellular signal, provide that to this unit, and now you can immediately have then a Wi-Fi 6 access point that's available to you. You also have rich management options within there, whether it's parental controls, running VPN on device, being able to set quality of service filters or things along those lines. All of those options are available to you. There's also what is called WISP mode connectivity. So this means it can be bridged into different actually exposed access points that are commonly found at things like airports or hotels. That is also going to be available to you. You can see, again, very lightweight at 100 grams in terms of the unit. And of course, the power functionality, you can use USB-based power delivery. So this is a great addition if you're being able to want to have something that provides you a more comprehensive, stable, reliable Wi-Fi experience on the go. That's your own network that you're providing connectivity from, like I said, from the 4 or 5G cellular signal that you have from your phone. Just connect it and you're good to go. Again, doesn't matter Android or iPhone. It's actually a driver-free technology, so you don't have to go through and manage software. You only need the software if you want to be able to go ahead and maybe manage more some of the advanced firmware level features or functions. So if you want more performance or you want more speed, we're also going to be upgrading from the Wi-Fi 6 standard here to the Wi-Fi 7 standard, and that is going to be for this guy for the RT-BE58 GO. So this is still also going to be very compact in terms of this unit, but you're going to be stepping up to Wi-Fi 7 speeds, and you also are even going to get 2.5 gigabit networking on this. Now, one cool thing that I didn't note on both of these is both of these products can actually be used in a hybrid capacity in your home. So if you have an ASUS network already, so you have an ASUS router or you have an ASUS mesh network, and you wanted to be able to add these to actually your node in your home to be able to give you a little bit more coverage. So when you're not traveling, you can essentially use these to extend the Wi-Fi in your home if you have a pre-existing ASUS network. So it's pretty cool that you can kind of have these serve not only as a travel router, but also as a node in your home to be also expand additional coverage. And that would also be the case here with the B850 GO. And I love the fact that this one, like I said, steps up from gigabit connectivity to 2.5 gigabit. Along with the Wi-Fi 7 and the MLO support, this is going to give you even much faster speeds. Works really well if you're using more newer devices on the market. So if you're using newer generation laptops, newer handhelds, newer phones, newer tablets that might have Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7, and you want to be able to get even better speeds from that and maximize the speed and performance that you have from your 4 or 5G cellular-based device. So both of these models pretty much are hitting right now in terms of the overall availability. We have still one more travel router, which we have not released, which hopefully will be released by the end of the year, and that will be our flagship 5G Go model, which will also be fully IP certified and also have SIM support. So that one wouldn't require you to connect your phone to it to be able to provide the cellular signal. You could actually just get a SIM card, connect the SIM card, and bam, you would be able to have, of course, connectivity anywhere based on that SIM card, although it will still support the USB WAN feature. So you kind of have either or available to you. You can still use the USB WAN feature, or you can go ahead and utilize the SIM-based feature functionality. So both of them will be available to you. So that is going to be the RT-BE58 GO. And again, you can see how compact and nice this guy is in terms of just being able to throw it in your bag and be able to give you everything you're looking for in terms of a stable and reliable internet connected experience, right? Let me see any quick questions right there. Love these Go routers. Thank you very much. Yeah. And again, one great thing that you also have within these models is that if you want to, again, be able to extend also your network, you can use them in your home as well. So they can kind of give you the best balance of not only being something that can benefit you on the go, but also they can benefit you at home, right? So for Neymar 5000 saying no eSIM, that's correct. For the 5G Go, I think we have an image up for this 5G Go. I can show you. That model will not be eSIM. And when we did polling and testing, eSIM is still, I think, not as common in terms of kind of people's acceptance or understanding as of yet. So we still felt we wanted to go with standard-based SIM support. So this is actually going to be the flagship model that you can see right here. So this will be the 5G unit, right? Where this unit, like I said, will be the most advanced. It'll be more expensive. This will still be quite a bit less expensive than a lot of the hot spots that are literally, some of them are costing like $400, $500, $600, $700 for some of these mobile hotspots. This is going to be a really impressive unit because, again, you're going to have tri-bi connectivity, so full real 6 gigahertz base performance for the Wi-Fi 7 band or Wi-Fi 6E. You're going to get 2.5 gigabit networking. You have an integrated 6,000 milliamp battery. It's also going to have that touch screen, wall mount integration support, and the IP certification. This is going to be a monster of a unit. So I think anybody that does a lot of traveling that wants really the most robust kind of connectivity experience on the go, this is going to be an awesome device to be able to pair when you're traveling on the go. But this one, like I said, probably won't be available until very near towards the end of the year. I think probably it's going to be maybe very late November going into kind of December timeframe, where again, the 2 Go models, we've just finished launching those into the channel. So right now you can go ahead and pick those up. And we still also have an intermediate option, technically between the this model here, the AX50 GO, we have the AX57 GO, and then we have the BE858 GO. So this one comes in, what was this, at $70? The other model comes in at approximately $100, and then you go into this model, which would be the next step up. So there's kind of like a good, better, best kind of tiering up. So 2 Wi-Fi 6 models, then the Wi-Fi 7 model, and then another Wi-Fi 7 model. So by the end of the year, we'll essentially have 4 different travel units, all at different price points, different performance, different feature levels, to kind of give you everything that you're looking for on that side. Okay. Hi, somebody's asking here, will the USB-C support also support a 10G LAN adapter? No. I'd have to double check on that. And the main reason why is because the 10G based adapters that are on the market, they generally require ultra speed. So most of those units are either certified only for Thunderbolt ports, or they have to be certified for a 40 gigabit port. They're not even validated for 20 gigabit enabled ports. So this, based off of the chipset and the actual IO standard that we're using on this, I would not make any presumptions to say that you could use a 10G based adapter with that port. So again, even seeing the 2.5 gigabit is quite a bit better than what you see traditionally on these units, where they might not even have Ethernet, or they only have gigabit Ethernet versus the 2.5 gigabit standard. Okay. So that, let me go ahead and drop these in the chat just in case anybody does want to go ahead and check these out here. I utilize the Marvel 10G on USB-C on a laptop. Yeah, your laptop might have a 40 gigabit port. It's not quite common. I mean, my laptop right here has a 40 gigabit port, so it's not unreasonable to think that your laptop either has a 40 gigabit port or has a Thunderbolt port. So just keep in mind, again, it's most 10G based adapters, they're not utilized spec to use like a standard USB-C port, right? It's like, let's say, rated at 5 or 10 gigabits. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, if it's a very old unit, that's surprising to me. So have you actually tested the speed, though, to make sure that it works, or which adapter it is? You can send over more information. Feel free, PCDIY at asus.com. I can check into that, because based on my understanding of the spec implementation, that shouldn't be possible for the 10G based spec standard. So love to be able to get a little bit more information for what's there. There also can be a power envelope factor. 10G based usually have about, I'd say, twice to 3 times the power consumption of probably about a 2.5 gigabit based adapter. So in the wattage range, you're usually looking at about like 10 to even sometimes over 10 watts, which is the reason why actually a lot of 10G based adapters require heat sinks. So that's also the reason why a lot of them are quite large. So I'm also surprised, like if you're saying it's years old, I don't know when you bought your adapter and using with the laptop, but if it's a 10G adapter, it should be pretty small. It should be like pretty big. It should be like about like this big, right? Because they need actually a larger heatsink to be able to dissipate the heat as well, right? Okay, so last ones, let's go here, is we have a couple of networking products and traditional routers to kind of fit on here. And we're going to go here. One's going to be the TUF Gaming BE9400. So this is going to be a really nice option for those of you who want to step up to finally going into a tri-band based router, but you're not looking to kind of break the bank. Tri-band has generally been quite a bit more expensive. For reference, when we first launched Wi-Fi 7, we had the BE96. That model launched at a price point of almost about $600. So this is about half the price, and you're still going to be able to get tri-band. Now that model is still going to have some other spec upgrades to it, like it'll have a faster chipset. It has even a faster level of performance. It has 10G connectivity available to it. But this, I think, for a lot of users, hits a really great balance to give them outstanding coverage, great speed, great feature set, and functionality. So what do we get here? We're going to get tri-band, so that means it's going to give us 2.45 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz connectivity. We are going to have a huge number of ports. This is going to have 4 2.5 gigabit ports, and then 3 2.5 gigabit ports on there, and then 1.25 gigabit WAN port. So in total, that's actually 8 ports that you have on this unit. So it's got a massive dense switch in there. It's going to be great for connecting to your mini PC or your NAS or your range of devices, and being able to have a multi-gig standard. I absolutely love that type of flexibility and functionality is on there. You're also going to get our best-in-class kind of gaming-grade feature set, where we have optimizations for gaming and for different types of streaming services. You can do this all through the ASUS router app, or you can do it through our great WRT interface. Also, from a warranty perspective, compared to many other vendors on the warranty line, we offer a much better warranty coverage for our routers and mesh networking products than competitors. Most competitors, some of them have even less than a year coverage, and the vast majority only 1 year. Our networking products have a 3-year warranty coverage, along with no paywall features. If you're a parent and want to even be out parental controls, there's companies like Eero, TP-Link, Netgear that all actually paywall many of their features. So you actually have to pay like a monthly subscription to be able to maintain advanced kind of specialized features or functions within the firmware. Things like our quality of service, our VPN router unfunctionality, our parental controls, all of these are built into the life of the product. There's no additional cost for you to run these features, and we actively sustain and support them with continued firmware updating to be able to ensure that you get a great level of features, functionality, and performance from the unit. And some people kind of wonder about coverage and range, why I might go with this versus, let's say, a mesh networking product. And it really comes down to what you want to balance in terms of the performance. So when this is a tri-band unit, if we consider the cost, I could buy like one of my mesh networking ecosystems for around probably a similar price point. So let's say between about like $280 to about $300-ish, is I could get a mesh product that would give me greater coverage. Now, a traditional router is going to give you, if it's a high performance router like this, we're going to get somewhere between about maybe 2,500 to about 2,800 square feet. Now, different environments are going to dictate whether or not you maybe need mesh, or maybe you want to go with a router. But I want to explain why a router could maybe make more sense. If you understand the way a mesh networking product works, so let me actually show you an example here. One of our great kind of balanced cost Wi-Fi 7 based mesh networking products, we're going to do a little bit of a comparison here. So we're going to use our BD5. This is quite solid and cost aggressive based product. Now this is 140, but technically we need 2 units in the mesh node pack. So we need to actually double this up. So we're going to look at $250. Okay, so this technically is a little bit cheaper, right? But let's go ahead and kind of compare here if we were to look at these two. So let me do this. Sorry. There you go. Trying to snap there. Hold on. There we go. Okay, there we go. Let's do that. Okay. All right. So if we kind of break this down here and we look at the 250 versus, again, 280 here. And again, this could go on promo. The first thing is coverage, right? This would generally give you more coverage, right? So, you know, you'd be over 3,000 square feet with the 2-pack easily. And this one is going to give you like 25 to 2,800 square feet. But this is also a dual band product. Okay. Now, the way mesh works is to have each node talk to each other. They actually have to use what's called a wireless backhaul. So that means one of the wireless bands is used to talk to the 2 nodes together. So in reality, this actually becomes only a single band product. With a traditional router, I still maintain all 3 bands available to me. So if I really care about speed and latency and wanting to get the best performance, especially if I don't need that extra coverage, you would actually get better speeds and lower latency and overall better Wi-Fi experience from the router, because the router is going to give you 3 bands, all of them being available, versus with the mesh node, I'm going to lose one of those. And that's a reality. It doesn't matter what mesh product you buy. If we move up to a tri-band product, it becomes only a dual band product. If I move over to a quad band product, then I only have a dual band product. Excuse me, quad band, I do tri-band, and then dual band is a single band. So pretty much every rung that you go up, you're going to lose 1 band, right? But that's the advantage of also having like a tri-band mesh networking product or a quad band mesh networking product, is that you can actually still maintain some of those bands that you would normally be losing. So that's one factor. Another one would be generally is the number of mesh networking ports. Now, we're not like some competitors. Some competitors are very interesting. They will have what are called primary nodes and secondary nodes. And on the secondary nodes, they'll remove Ethernet ports altogether, or they reduce the number of ports. For ASUS, we do what are called match nodes. So the nodes are exactly the same. That means you can always use either node as the primary node, and we give you the same port and the same chipset on both the products. Some competitors are quite sneaky in this regard, and they actually will change up the spec based on either the primary node or the secondary node. Now, this unit will give you dual 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports, which is quite nice if you wanted to have a wired backhaul, which would actually re-enable both bands available to you, or great if you want to have multi-gigabit Ethernet coming into your home. But this model, remember, it has 8 2.5 gigabit ports. So if we look at not only the overall speed, the tri-band, and the number of ports, you can definitely see how this unit could give you a great experience. And the last thing that I'll add there is, remember, is that all ASUS routers are extendable routers, or using our AI mesh technology. So that means if you actually did always need more coverage, you could actually get another ASUS router. It doesn't have to be the same model. It could be any number of about 40 different ASUS routers that you could actually add to the unit, and then be able to go ahead and extend your network. And because it's also a tri-band router, if you actually match this with another, let's say, tri-band router, you would even have better performance than you would have with something like this, because you would get the coverage, but you would still then be able to have 2 bands be exposed, as opposed to here only having 1 band be exposed, right? So that gives you a little bit of breakdown in terms of just some of the difference there. But I think for many users, this is going to be a fantastic option for you to consider if you're going to be looking for something that can offer you coverage, speed, performance, great connectivity, and just a great feature set in terms of that. And even the chipset is quite nice at a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core based chipset, which is very performant. The last thing I'll also note here is that we do have a dedicated gaming port, which for people that don't know how to set up stuff, if you just like wire in your desktop computer or like a console, it will automatically prioritize that as a device in the network, so that it gets essentially more immediate processing to reduce latency and improve the overall performance of that device. Setup free. You don't have to set anything up. You literally just have to physically connect the cable to the gaming port, and the router knows, oh, you plugged into that gaming port, I'm going to automatically prioritize that device for you. You also have a USB port, which is actually rare. It's not on all type of mesh networking products. We do offer it on all of our higher end. So BT6, BT8, BT10, BQ16, they all have USB ports. But if you actually want to create like a rudimentary NAS, you can use that using what's called our AI cloud system, where you could attach like a USB external hard drive to this, and you could actually make your own personal, actually like network attached storage on your network by just connecting it to that USB port, and then having that be locally available to you, as well as also externally available to you, even through the web. So a lot of cool functionality that we have on that side of the fence. So last but not least, and I see there's a couple of questions that came up, so I don't know if they're networking related. I'll do my best to go ahead and jump into them in a second, but I want to also touch lastly on another update for a little bit more of an upgrade if you want even more performance. So you even want a faster based chipset and you want even more features. We have now the ROG STRIX GS-BE1200. So this will be a higher spec unit. So if you remember, the other one we said was a 9400 megabit unit. That's the number of kind of the total bandwidth that has available to you. So 9.4 gigabits. This one is 12 gigabits, right? So it's overall a faster type of unit in terms of that processing capability. It has a more also optimized antenna design that gives not only faster performance, but it also is more minimal in terms of the design, right? The other one had the external antennas. Here, all the antennas are packaged inside, which is quite challenging. It takes a lot of engineering to kind of optimize the antennas when you don't have them externally set up in this regard. So here you get that 2.4, the 5, and the 6 gigahertz. You're going to have our MLO implementation, which is great because not all actually vendors will actually offer MLO-based support. And if we go over here, you can also see that you're going to upgrade. We go to a 2 gigahertz quad-core based processor, and this unit actually has 2 gigs of DDR memory that is there also for additional processing capabilities for this actual router. And then on the port side, you still get massive switch functionality. So this again has 8 ports. You have a total of 8 2.5 gigabit ports on there, including the 2.5 gigabit for WAN. And one other really cool feature that I want to touch on that both the TUF Gaming model does and this model support is that USB port that we have on our units can work as a backup feature. And one of the really great things about that backup feature is that you can actually take your phone, connect that to the port, and if your ISP service ever goes down, so let's say you have Comcast or AT&T or Time Warner, whoever might be your internet service provider, and let's say it were to go down, you can just connect your phone to that, and then you can immediately have a backup. Your router will now use your phone as that primary 4G or 5G cellular signal, and that will become your new kind of internet service provider until your primary internet service provider comes back online. That is built in free into the firmware functionality we have for actually all of our USB-enabled routers. So whether you buy a mesh networking product or whether you buy a standard router, they all have that feature, which is actually pretty cool. So yeah, this is a great unit. And again, this model also supports AI mesh with a lot of other really cool features and functions. If you want to learn more about some of the really great networking features, maybe consider checking out some of the streams that we have that talk about some of our networking centric designs. We might be maybe do an updated kind of deep dive into some of the really cool options that we have in our firmware, because there's so many things I think people aren't aware that we can do within our routers. Like I'll just give you one as an example. If you want to set up one of the dedicated bands, this being a tri-band router, in my house, I actually have one of my bands set up as a dedicated VPN band. So that means all I do is when I want to be on a VPN, I connect to that band specifically, and the VPN is always active. And that's great because it means that anybody that's using the house doesn't have to like turn on an extension or do this, or they don't have to understand anything. The moment that they want the anonymity or the benefits of a VPN, they just connect to that band, and now you're using the VPN. And if you want a normalized connection, then you can do that. This can also even benefit you from a gaming perspective, where we have what are called gaming-centric VPN setups, which can actually reduce the number of hops that you have to go through for your traditional servers. And we can go through optimized game-centric servers to actually help to reduce ping and latency in scenarios. So there's actually some really cool stuff that we can do with our gaming-centric designs that we have available for you. But let me go ahead and see if there's any quick questions there. And we'll start getting ready to wrap things up here. Yeah, I'm interested in the TUF router. I will go ahead and drop that link there in the chat right there. Liquid House also, who actually upgraded their network to one of our routers, is actually, I love the BT10. We've had it since June, first router setup that we ever had that worked perfect from day one and zero issues. Yeah, the BT10 is a really great unit. That's a tri-band model. So the cool thing that they're getting there is they're getting really fast speeds that even with the connection with both of them, they're still maintaining a high-speed connection. Plus, the BT10 also gives you high-speed wired-based connectivity there. So they get a really great best of both worlds experience, a lot of rich options within the software and the firmware. But great to have that feedback there from Liquid House on the experience that they're getting from a networking product. And if you guys aren't aware, we're also best-in-class rated amongst all networking manufacturers as the #1 recommendation from PC Magazine with multiple years running as the preferred actually networking vendor. So amongst all manufacturers, we have maintained a pole position in that regard. Okay. Crypto, any new monitors hit the market today? Tandem WLED? No, I talked about that in the last stream, 121. If you want to find out about Tandem OLED, go there. But still not coming until much later until the year for the Tandem OLED-based updates. So you still got a bit more to go. I did touch on some new OLED updates, so you can go ahead and kind of scroll back to the beginning of the stream. But it's more on the entry-level side. It's a QD OLED solution, 280 hertz, coming in at $699. But for the Tandem OLED, that's going to be coming a little bit later. And we'll have a focus live stream when those are ready to actually release to the market. But in terms of availability, we're still actually a pretty good chunk of time away before those units actually hit in terms of actual availability. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and drop those units into the chat for anybody that is interested at checking those models out. And the TUF Gaming, the BE94. And also for those of you who might be interested, that if you're even looking for a little bit lower cost and maybe you really don't think that you need to go for tri-band, which keep in mind, you can have extraordinarily good performance from dual band. You don't have to go to tri-band. We also have the BE6500, which is actually a Costco exclusive, which goes for a really aggressive price point. I think that model sometimes comes in at like sub $200 for that model as a Costco exclusive. So we have the BE9400 and then we have the BE6500, which is another option. Again, we have the tri-band and then we have the dual band offering. So if you're looking for some options, those might be some to consider. So that pretty much wraps up everything for today's stream, guys. We don't have a PC DIY Builder Spotlight, but as I noted, if you guys are not part of our PC DIY community, please consider joining. There's a little QR code right there. There's also, I think, a link in the description for those of you who are checking us on YouTube. If you guys want to be able to join the community, I will be bringing back the PC DIY Builder Spotlight next week. So we'll have at least, if not one, maybe at least 2 to 3, maybe 4 community builds that we'll showcase on here. I love being able to showcase builds that we have from the community members that we have. So we'll definitely be doing that. Of course, answering your guys' questions. We might maybe do a little bit of a demo. I think I'm going to probably moving forward, maybe at least once a week, try to cover some new demos that maybe might be fitted into the weekly live stream, or maybe on a separate day within the week where we dive into some of the cool stuff that we do within our product designs. Maybe it's doing a deeper dive into GPU tweak. Maybe it's diving into some of the cool functions that we have in our UEFI BIOS that exist across models. Like a good example would be like DIMFit or Q dashboard, or how to do certain things like that to be able to help to give you guys better understanding and insight on terms of what we're doing. So if those are stuff you want to check out or you're interested in, feel free to always drop that in the comments and let us know. That being noted, let me see if there's any last questions. If not, we'll go ahead and wrap up the stream, and thank you guys as always for joining us. All right. Let's see anything that came up right there. Thanks so much, John and Ellie. You guys have a fantastic Friday. You guys have a safe weekend, and take care and take it easy. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions like that. So from that, Omni Kim Chain. Okay. Yeah. Maybe we can see if we can get, I know that we actually did release. Actually, that's a you know what? You gave a cool little plug there. Let me actually show them here. They're on the ASUS store right now. We just released these new cool little Omni like figures that just came out. Maybe I can see if I can get a couple for a giveaway, but I want to show if anybody wants to pick some of these up, because sometimes people don't know that we have these things and they come out and people kind of see them. So let me actually show you right here. We have them actually in both. We have them in white and there's a black. So if you guys love Omni, I think Omni is one of our coolest characters. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the ROG Saga. So we have an entire thing called the ROG Saga and the ROG Worldview. So there's actually multiple characters. There's Go, there's Akira, there's Omni, right? There's Horseman, who's of course the original. There's Seven. There's so many different amazing things actually about the ROG Worldview and the ROG Saga. But we have released this really cool ROG mini figure, which I think is pretty awesome. So if you guys actually want to pick up the ROG figure, it's available right now from the ASUS store. There's a black version and there's a cool white version too. I really dig the white version. It's got kind of like retro vibes to it with that kind of like beigeish white with a little bit of that purple. I really dig it. So yeah, if you guys want to be able to pick it up, you can see that it's kind of cool. It got some little accessories, the styled outfit, the little kind of attachable hands. You got the mask too from the Omni. So yeah, if you guys want to pick up an Omni, check it out. We got Omni available. And generally we have these, they're usually like limited. We don't maintain them for a super long period of time. So I think we had like the 7 figures that were available for a period of time on the website, and then they kind of sold out and they were no longer available. Right. So yeah, go ahead and check it out, guys. If you guys want, I'll drop this in the chat right now. So if anybody wants to go ahead and pick up an ROG Omni figure, you guys can do that as well. All right. Neymar goes, as I have both red and white Omnis. Oh man, fantastic, man. Thank you so much. It's awesome. Yeah, Liquid House says those are awesome. We'll see maybe if we can get you a shipment out there. Maybe next time you guys are doing a stream or you're doing some content, you guys can maybe throw a little Omni in the corner. You can see if it can be like find Omni, right? where is he hiding or something like that, right? Need a bigger one with 3-inch screens that can show PC info. Yeah, that would be pretty cool, right? Yeah. All right, guys. Take care. Take it easy. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.